Hello again. I want to talk to you about another book, and this is an author who I discovered in the early 1990s, although he would have been famous about 20 years before that, really. His name's Richard Bach, and he's an American author. He's still alive today, actually, although he'd be quite an old man now. And the book I want to talk to you about is his second book. The first book I came across was probably his most famous, which is Jonathan Livingston Seagull, which was also made into a film about 1975, I think, and has kind of music by Neil Diamond. It's kind of cheesy, really, but you know, the book was actually really interesting and quite profound. And his follow-up book, which is this one, Illusions, The Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah, also in the 70s, but this came out in 1977, I think. And it's really quite a strange, unusual book. It centres around flying and the author meeting up with this rather strange and mysterious, charismatic character who's sort of a reluctant messiah, as the title suggests. So I won't tell you too much about what happens, because you might not have read it. But Richard Bach even was a flyer himself into old planes. I think he had a pretty major crash about the early 2000s, 2010 or something like that. I'd have to check the exact date. But yeah, I don't know if he's actually back flying at all. But I suppose these old planes, they're bound to go wrong at times. But anyway, he survived that crash, fortunately. But this book is very short. It's you know, the print is very large. It's not as big as actually his first book, which was less than 10,000 words. The type is sort of, you know, it's big enough, but it's not gigantic. But yeah, it's very easy to read. It wouldn't take you long to get through it. But it has some interesting insights, especially now at the time when we live in a kind of age of narcissism and sort of very sort of self-promoting spiritual people. Which I suppose is ironic. I am promoting myself with this video, but you know, it's very much an age where there's a lot of glitz, glamour, and sort of celebrity personality, celebrity involved in spirituality these days. Which the guy in this book, you know, that's the last thing he's interested in. And in a way, or you know, obviously, I like people to listen to my videos. I'd like people, hopefully, to buy some of my books, but you know, I don't want fans. I don't want people to regard me as some kind of celebrity, or to think what I've got to say is sort of more important than anybody else. You know, there's so many of these people out there, which, you know, you look at people who become sort of megastars that were, you know, one example that springs to my mind is Deepak Chopra, who would have been sort of a minor celebrity in India, and also sort of among the sort of Western sort of spiritual area, sort of in the 90s, and then he just became sort of like a megastar, and he's just turned it into a massive business. I'm not saying, you know, he shouldn't have bothered to do that exactly. I mean, it's his life; he can do what he wants. But you know, the trouble with sort of gurudom is maybe you start to believe your own sort of PR, and you kind of become a parody of your own self. So, I mean, I think you have to take all this with a pinch of salt. And in this book, you know, this guy has very amazing abilities, but he's not interested in becoming a famous person, or if this was around today, he probably wouldn't even have Facebook, or he probably wouldn't have YouTube. He wouldn't have anything at all. He'd just get on and do what he does very quietly, and there'd be no fanfare. But I mean, we do live in an age when, if you want to have any success, you're kind of forced to engage with social media. But yeah, it's a difficult one. If you don't want to be a sellout, if you don't want to be overly commercial, if you don't use any of these things at all, it's very hard to engage with anyone, because you just sort of pretty much disappear if you don't use electronic media. The days of putting up a poster somewhere, around the shops and stuff, seems to be pretty much over. I suppose it's word of mouth, but even then, that seems to spread mostly by social media rather than actual real face-to-face conversations, especially now that everyone's locked down. But I think this book's really worth reading, because it does kind of give you some insights into spirituality that maybe you wouldn't get at these times, given when it was written, which is nearly about nearly 45 years ago. It's got a very different perspective. So sometimes it's worth looking at these things simply because the perspective is different and it's in a different context, not in this age of omnipresent Facebook, YouTube, etc. And everybody's got websites, everybody's selling themselves online. So it's from a different time, and yeah, I'd strongly recommend it. I certainly got a lot out of it. So that's all I've got to say for today. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.